Hello and welcome to the fourth session of this Chronicle series. It is a series of games. We built a world in our first session of Microscope, and then we played around with a story game for tarot building within that same world in our second session. And for these last two sessions, we're playing Ben Robbins' Kingdom, which is a GM-less story game with some structure and some roles to it, in which we play a kingdom, which could be, as small as like a glee club or as large as a country. And we're all parts of it with different roles, different characters that have different kinds of authority in gameplay. And we're playing a city that was sort of hinted at in the timeline that we built. And last time, within this city, we dealt with the question of how do we expand to increase the farming in the area, and the tension, of course, with a big nature spirit in the area. And we'll talk about what the results were of that in a bit. My name is Lowell, pronouns he, him. And this session is part of the Gauntlet Gaming Calendar. You can find out more about that at gauntlet-rpg.com. We are playing with the Kingdom Second Edition rules, which Ben Robbins is only like just finished, like finalized, sent the cover. I had to change the title card for the thing because he put out a final cover for it and everything. But I'm assuming it'll be available soon on the Lame Mage website. So if you're interested in this game, you can check it out there. So before we get too far in, I'm going to have all of us introduce our main character and then our minor character, so that everyone remembers who we have here. And then I'll talk about what the kingdom's sort of setup is. As we go through our characters, if there are things about that we want to change in terms of roles or things, we can do that. I'll go ahead and start. My two characters are first Soulworn, who is a human, who is a fortune teller, diviner, sells their services around town. They can be found at the Crow Keeper's Rest and the Broken Temples. And they're very nervous about the wild magics in the city. And that is their main concern. They're a little bit scraggly and a little bit threadbare. And then my minor character is Magistrate Din, who is a large canine person, anthropomorphic, maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he would very much like to keep the city in order. That's very much what he would like to do. So I'll go clockwise. Marley, why don't you tell us about your two characters?
Yeah, I'm Marley, she, her. My main character is Riska Sharptooth, they, them, who's a beaver-kind architect. Riska was not actually, is not actually a local, but came to town and was hired for being a very famous architect because there's a lot of rebuilding to be done. And is the has the power aspect. Though I'm thinking of switching it up a little bit because I'm curious about other parts of the system. And then the minor character is Pandora Sugarfrost, she, her, who is a ferret child. And one of the aspects we decided of this city is that there's some wild magic going on in the pangaroot trees, and Pandora is very fond of playing amongst them and is sort of the local expert on them.
Very nice. So what are you thinking of shifting to?
I kind of wanted to kick it around.
Sure.
So one of the thoughts was actually just changing the character entirely. But one of the other things was, okay, maybe if we can move ahead in time a little bit, maybe the city has been rebuilt, so maybe their contract is over, so they are no longer the official architect, but They are still but they have become fond of the city and decided to perhaps retire there. And now they're more of a cultural icon that everyone remembers fondly, as opposed to someone with official power. So maybe they are a touchstone type character.
Interesting.
Who knows the feelings of the town.
What do you all think about moving a few seasons down the road with some more of that completed? Do you like that? Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Do you want to switch to Touchstone then?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good. Let's come clockwise in this dial to Stephen.
Hi, I'm Stephen. My pronouns are he, him, and my main character is Hawk, she, her, who is a jackalope, a young jackalope, has several scars. She's a trickster who fled here to hide away from, the dangers outside, and just fell in love with this eclectic village, town, and all that kind of stuff. My minor character is Daylor, who is a human. He's a chef who makes flavorful, sought-after food in the village.
Very nice. Dan.
Hello, I'm Dan. My pronouns are he, him. I'm playing Baltic, who is, let's just call him her or him Frogfolk for the sake of simplicity. And he sort of thought of himself as the avatar of the nature spirit, but he was really just more of a gopher for the nature spirit. And the nature spirit seems to have settled down, so there's not really a whole lot for Baltic to do. And that is why I asked the group, what does Baltic do now? I had one idea, which was that maybe he is sort of the administrator of all the farming that happens in and around the city, given the project that they did last time, sort of a bit of a bureaucrat, but I'm open to other ideas.
I like that. So you switch to power?
Yes, yeah, so he would switch to power.
And one of the things we talked about this the last time is the feeling maybe that power, like the role only came into sort of at the end. I kind of went back through the Kingdom 2 weeks. It's been a while since I played. And one of the things is, as the power, if you take that role, you can say, we do this, not in terms of the big crossroads picture thing, but like in play, we're going to move this person is going to be put in jail, we're going to institute these things that aren't the final decision for the crossroads. Before that's made, you can impose your will in that way.
All right, Baltic's will it is.
Okay. That sounds good.
I'm playing a minor character as well named Ross, she, her. She is the owner and barkeep at Crowkeeper's Rest, which is one of the locations that we had identified in the city. She has been largely excommunicated from the rest of the bird kind in the city.
And in terms of locations, we have the Gnarls, the forest outside the city. We have the Crowkeeper's Rest, the inn. We have the White Song Keep Conservatory, which is a place for musicians. We have the Dog Market, which is literally run by dogs. We have the baths, which are a little bit different from the sort of the textual thing that we have in there. The baths are where the nature spirit resides. And we have the Broken Temples, which are kind of the downside of the city. And we can, as we go into these scenes, we can talk about like what these places look like down the road in the time that has passed here. We also have the Aviary, which is the feathered folks part of town, and the New Leaf Gardens, once urban areas that have been repurposed into farms. And of course, now we also have these farms outside the city. Threats that are facing the city. City's infrastructure is in desperate need of repair, so clean water is an issue. We've got the Grand Nature Spirit, which is still present, but has kind of retired as an issue for us to deal with. We have the strange magics bleeding from the panga root. And we still have the question of food supply. A little bit of that has been hit, but we can go in different directions. Those are just some of the things that we've had there. So last time, our decision was made to expand the farming to fertile areas outside the old agreed bounds of the city. And as a result, we had old wild magics that were unleashed, but these were more fruitful, literally and figuratively, in creating new crops and new vegetations, while our nature spirit abided. He was upset about this and kind of still poked his nose into it, and has those weird demands for the crops. And a lot of the credit has gone to the nature spirit. The unique crops has been used as a tourist attraction in its own way, with new dishes being created in the line of that. So I'm going to paste a blank one. I've copied this down below, and so I'm going to overwrite this with a blank. So if we follow the order we did last time, Dan, you would be choosing a crossroad. But if you want to talk with the table, or if you want to defer, we've got some examples there on the Kingdom tab. What is something that you might find interesting, or that a couple of things you're interested in?
Yeah, there were a couple that jumped out at me, and I'm happy to. But I'm happy to defer if someone else feels very strongly about it. The ones that I thought would be sufficiently different from what we did last time is the refugees from another magical catastrophe have arrived and asked for entry, but resources are tight. Will you let them in? I like that one. I also like the idea of maybe a little less political. Mages want to establish a new magical school, given all the interesting magic that's happening. And I'm always interested in a monster under a city. So maybe we look at, will we send a force of adventurers to deal with the monster under the city? Those are the ones that jumped out at me. Does anyone have any others that they liked, or is any one of those of particular interest?
I have to admit, I don't quite see how the adventuring party one works with this system. That feels like suddenly we veer into D&D territory.
Well, it's an odd one. It's more about, will the city like fund and gather and bring in adventurers, sneer, and send them down into something that might actually be, cause problems for the city. That's sort of the framing of that.
Okay.
Any of those three appeal to you?
Yeah, I mean, I could work with any of those.
Okay. Stephen, strong feelings on any of those?
No, not really. I think that the lists that the ones that Dan listed out were the ones that I kind of looked at and I thought were interesting. Maybe the refugees might be the way I'm leaning.
Okay. Dan, do you want to?
Works for me.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to copy that. So what do you think the question is for the kingdom? Is it, do we let the refugees in, or do we support the refugees? How do you want to frame the question that we're going to be asking here? What do you think, Dan?
This feels very ripped from today's headlines.
Yeah.
What is a way we can frame this? I think there's no doubt maybe it's sort of more about how do we provide the resources? How do we secure the resources to accept these new refugees?
So is the question then, will we provide resources for them, or is the what the kingdom is going to do more about some question about where we're going to get the resources.
I was leaning towards the latter.
Okay, so what is the yes or no on that then?
Oh,
What would be the tension point of how we would get those resources?
So this might be controversial, but do we make them bringing their entry contingent on them bringing resources? So that's one possibility. Another possibility is we end up making this about forming an alliance with a nearby city or kingdom to provide the resources.
So
I like that one. I feel like that's got a little more richer role-playing possibilities. The other thing I was thinking of is instituting some sort of rationing or something like that, but I'm not sure like those are I mean, they're real world important, but I'm not sure they're like narratively compelling to play out.
Yeah, there's not
in a way that like an alliance feels like, you know, something a little more dynamic to play with.
So one of the thoughts that I had was, do we reach out and take resources from a neighboring nature spirit? However, we did nature spirits in the last session, so I'd say let's avoid that. But one of the things we could do is potentially leave that question open, saying, what risks do we take in order to gather those resources? Do we send, I'm just, does it need to be more specific?
Yeah, it needs to be a yes or no.
Okay.
The game interestingly frames this in a very tight way. You get some room to kind of define what that is. For example, if the question here is put, do we ally with a nearby city to gain resources to support the refugees? At this point, we don't know who that city is. We're going to discover that in play. We're going to discover what the costs and benefits are of that, what the challenges are. That's going to be the role of the perspective and the touchstone in some ways to define that.
I could also see us sort of weighing a few different alliances. And the answer is yes, if we can find one of them. And the answer is no, if none of these alliances work out.
Okay, so rather than being a specific city, the general question of allying is more of a thing?
Maybe that's the way to do it. It's sort of like, we've been very insular over the last several years or seasons or what have you. And now the growth is so much, we need to decide, are we going to ally with other nearby?
So who these cities are is not the issue.
I think so.
It's about our insularity rather than the question of who they are.
Right.
Okay.
This also feels ripped from today's headlines. Does that sound okay to everyone else?
Sure. So do we ally with a nearby city? With one of the nearby cities to cement that we don't know who that would be.
So if I'm not mistaken, we discussed that we were advancing the timeline somewhat.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, what I'd like to do, if no one has any objections, is I'd like to advance. So basically, I think Hawk has become more of an elder of the village, and I'm going to move to power. And I think that if you, I want to see how that interaction between two powers go.
Sure.
I think you had mentioned there was some kind of vote off, and I think we could each basically be bringing in a different city and proposing, this is what we're coming from.
Keep in mind that the question is going to be at the end, not which city do we ally with,
but do we?
But the very fact of allying with either city.
Yeah.
Okay.
To help make that concrete, I'm thinking, as touchstone, I think the answer currently is no, because we take great pride in our ability to solve our problems ourselves. and our independence is one of our strengths. So surely we can work this out ourselves.
I like
We do
it.
not need anyone else.
So we have the question on the table, and to remind you how this works, Dan will start. He'll call a scene, and then do that with his character and whichever other characters he wants to have. He'll set up where that is to give us a framework for that. In the course of that, characters who are present that have roles can use their powers, can issue orders, get the power, or make a prediction in the case of perspective. Then after
Does
that's done,
Touchstone have any?
Touchstone can indicate what the populace is feeling, because whatever the touchstone expresses is what the populace feels. And then after that scene is done, then there's the opportunity for other people with roles who haven't been in that present scene to give a brief monologue reflection on what went on, and then we change roles. So Dan, we'll have you call your scene.
I had a couple of ideas. One, I think just to kind of ground the decision that we're making in terms of the refugee challenge that we are facing, maybe Baltic is handing out food that was collected at the farms to some incoming refugees. And I'm kind of curious to explore sort of start to talk about the challenge, but also really get a sense of what exactly it is that they're running away from. And I wonder if Hawk is there because Hawk is now more of an elder, and we've been through a lot together. We're sort of leaning on each other for advice. And I don't know that we've seen much of Magistrate Din, but I wonder if Magistrate Din is there as sort of yet another kind of person in power, so to speak, presumably on paper, who's kind of helped get some things done.
I picture him as a tool of power. So,
right.
So where are we?
I think that's a great question. I wonder if we're using the Broken Temples as a refugee camp.
Ooh, okay.
Does that sound all right? I don't remember what the Broken Temples are.
They're sort of the bad part of town. So yeah, it's appropriate that we would dump them there.
Yeah.
I imagine that maybe they look like maybe we've got a fly through of the city where we've seen like lots of nice places rebuilt. The work that Riskov has done here with kind of overlaid from past to present. But when we get to the Broken Temples, like the walls have been cleaned and some things.
Right. A lot of tarps put up. And Baltic is there kind of with maybe sort of setting up a stall. And I've got some farmers from the urban farming community kind of bringing some various kinds of produce, and we're setting up a stall to kind of hand out food. And the line is already, it's barely dawn and the line is already forming. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and this is kind of an ask first on this. And you can tell me whether you think, because we haven't really talked about the different animal peoples and stuff, but I imagine there's a little bit maybe of Din being a little bit nervous. There's a lot of like coyote folk and fox folk and the sort of the predatory in nature folk, and I think Din is a very concerned about that.
Didn't we have a note about not making assumptions based on tropes or something like that in the palette?
we have no fantasy essentialism is what we have there. So do you think that falls
Okay.
into that? Do you feel like that's
I didn't place that rule, so I don't have a strong opinion. I was just trying to abide by.
we definitely asked first on racism. So I was picturing this as a kind of a demonstration of maybe some cultural attitudes and uncertainties there. And what do you think of that? Is that too much?
I wonder if Magistrate Din is just more worried about how the magic has affected these folks. Like, are they bringing some kind of magic sickness in?
Yeah. It's like these people come from a lot of different traditions. They're bringing stuff. We don't know what songs they're bringing, and you don't know when you get two songs put together. I've heard this. I don't know, but I've heard that if two people sing different songs in magic, and it gets then you have a third thing, you get like a melody.
Then it's
or
going
a
to be
medley. I don't know.
It's fine. It's fine. They're just hungry and they're scared.
I just think we need to be real cautious and maybe tell them not to do any magic.
I don't think they're doing the magic. I think they're running away.
They're running away, but there's going to be mages here amongst them from foreign lands.
And anytime they come into the city, we provide them a copy of the rules. And remember, rule number 2 is be careful with magic. So everyone knows that they need a license to practice magic.
I think we see Hawk kind of bump into the two of you as you're talking and kind of rush between the two of you and catch some little hoodlum who's trying to cut in line and basically pull them out and say, you need to go to the back, wait your turn just like everyone else. We'll do our best. Don't worry. And they kind of look kind of forlorn and, kind of keep an eye out, on Hawk, like, what are you doing? Yeah. And I think Hawk comes back to the two of you and says, these people will, these people coming in seem like they could really use our help. And they're trying really hard to get the things that they need.
I know, I hear you, Hawk. The farmers are taxed. It's like every meeting that we have of the agricultural union is one complaint after another that they can't produce the crops fast enough. And of course, rule number 6 is price controls. So they can't really drive up the prices, which is totally fair, right? We were trying to build a city where anyone is welcome, but that has its consequences. I don't know that we're going to be able to keep feeding the refugees, especially if whatever is happening keeps happening. The magical catastrophe is clearly driving people this way.
You worry too much. You remember, we always have made it through. We'll make it through this time. You remember back, when we had all the crops got burnt by that big fire. We made it through that. Everybody will tighten their belt. It'll be fine, Baltic.
The city was much smaller then, and we could weather, the burning of a few fields. But this is like, demand is out of this world now. We're just so many people.
Well, that's why we're lucky that maybe others are coming to help us.
What have you heard?
Oh, I've heard that, we may be, that there are other villages that come to visit from time to time and sample our wares and our exotic spices and stuff. And they're eager to invest and, help keep us afloat. Don't you think?
Maybe. I don't know. Feels like a bit of a stretch. I mean, they come to the city and they see all the wondrous buildings that Riskoff designed for us, and they might think we don't need any help. Magistrate Din, are you aware of these potential alliances?
I'm just gonna say, if it costs us our cardamom, I don't want any part of it. Because I love my cardamom. Yeah, it's so good in coffee. But anyway, I'm more concerned with the fact that with this many people here, there's not. I mean, there's only a few good sources of potable water, and we've got to make sure that none of them go into the places that aren't good. And drink from that. We're trying to get those all marked out. Most people know them already, but we're trying to mark them out more widely. But I don't think we should join another city. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
What? Why not? If they've got resources to help us out, they're not taking in the refugees.
But we haven't done that before, though.
Be that as it may, I feel like there's an opportunity to grow in a different way. Baltic has really matured over the years, I feel like.
And I think Hawk says, I'll tell you what, Magistrate, if you're worried about getting some help, I'll put the word out and we can talk to the people in line and see if a couple of them might help you mark the water, the potable water places. Would you like that?
Any hands would be good. I can put them with some deputies. Okay.
Good. And I think that's what happens is Hawk keeps an eye, and she can kind of read people, and she, says, okay, this would be a good person that I think the magistrate would get along with and would help integrate them into the society a little bit better. Let's put, this one with one of Den's deputies and see how good of a job they do.
So your order is sort of establishing volunteers from amongst the refugees?
Yes.
Okay.
And this would definitely be volunteers, not, in order to get the food, you have to work. Yeah.
And I think Baltic, using his power, identifies folks who can be hired as farmhands to help with the urban farms. And so that's potentially we can be a little bit more productive.
Hopefully not too exploitative.
No, they get paid for their work. There's no doubt.
Does it feel like scene? Or do you have some more you want to do in that?
I don't know. I'm in the habit of ending on a cliffhanger, so we don't have to do that here. I was wondering if maybe some magic got out of hand, or something like that, but I'm good.
Okay. Marley, do you have a reaction from Riskov that you want to monologue up?
Yeah, basically, like I said before, we can handle this our own. We're already, these refugees are of course also good and good people, and many of them have skills which will be valuable to us as a city, and I'm sure it will just work out if we put our minds to it. So yeah, no alliance is needed.
So definitely, as a touchstone, you're putting sort of the if we're on a physical table, you put the token on the no side of the column at this point. Okay. And I think that for the perspective that if we do this, I think that we see Soulworn talking with some tradesmen and things, and very much getting the sense that doing this will require some serious concessions. From the city. Like, we're definitely going to have to cut some not favorable trade agreements and things to get that to work. Marley, do you want to call the next scene?
All right. Let's see.
Do we mark whether we do crossroad or crisis?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Absolutely, Dan. You should put a check on Crossroad if we've kind of move forward on the path, or if this created a major schism, we can mark crisis.
I'm gonna say we've started to tease out the challenge. I'm gonna mark crossroad.
Okay.
Hmm.
And doesn't the touchstone get a chance to do something like mark one of those as well?
The touchstone, what we did in the interim is Briskov expressed the feelings of the people, which is on the no side, and so they kind of put their token on that side, and then they can also express very specific feelings within that about that.
Okay.
So have we established what it is they're running from yet?
No.
We have not. Okay. So I think Riskov is hanging out at Crow Keeper's Rest with Roz. And the rest of you want to throw in your characters, you're welcome to. Maybe Soulworn and Daylor. But yeah, this is no kind of official thing. At this point, Riskov, yeah, they're a cultural figure. So like when they come in, you know, they've always got to, it's actually getting pretty crowded in there because the city's starting to get kind of crowded, but Riskov there's always a seat for Riskov. Yeah, sort of the thought of the scene is that we're going to talk to some refugees and find out what their stories are.
Soulworn will wander up. Riskov, it has been a few weeks since I've seen you.
Well, you know, I've been spending some time with that nature spirit. I don't know what you're all worried about with him. He's a fine enough sort once you get to know him.
I don't think anybody's really all that worried about him now, but
yeah, just some things to be worked out. We get along quite well these days. Yeah, I was thinking of starting up building myself a little cottage out there. But then again, I've also got the place in the Gnarls I'm working on, so I need to finish one project before I go on to the next. But Roz, can we get a pint? Yeah, it's busy in here. Have you noticed?
A little crowded. There's some people that have come up from Cheapside that would normally be drinking down there, but those establishments have been a little turned over.
Turned over how?
With the refugees. They planted them down there, and the folks that would normally go and take their drink down there have wandered in other parts of the town. So gestures around to the full tables, as you can see the results.
I think Taylor is actually sitting at one of the tables, like at the booth where Riskoff and Soulworn are. And I think it's kind of the old folks table, or, you know, the established. And he heard Riskoff, you know, holler at Ross, but Ross is real busy. So I think Daylor kind of gets up and, you know, walks on behind the bar and picks up, you know, a couple of mugs and, you know, pours some drink and comes back and then, you know, looks back over his shoulder at Ross, and Ross is frantically working on a table, and he goes over to one of the tables of refugees and kind of takes their order and, you know, starts waiting a little bit just to help out.
I do make it over, or Ross makes it over with some pints to you all, to Soulworn and Riskoff, and she puts them down on the table pretty hard, and she's like, Riskoff, you were going to design that extension for me for Crow Keeps Rest. What's the holdup? You can see I need the space.
It's already designed. When are you going to get the workers for me?
I can literally spit and hit 6 people in here who would do that work. I haven't seen any plans.
Riskoff just got back from a long vacation visitation with the nature spirit. Surely Riskoff has earned some rest.
Fine, I gotta go. I got other tables I gotta work on.
I think Daylor comes back from the table of refugees and kind of pats Ross on the back and says, you know, buck up, it'll be fine, and scoots into the booth with the other people.
Well, now Ross is put out and we can't have that. So Riskoff stands up at the table and yells, "Oi! You lot! Says she needs an extension built on this here end. Taking applications for workers. Table starting now. Line up there." People start to line up, and Riskoff looks at the first one and says, "So what's your story?" And this is the part where, like, now we have NPCs and I don't know how to deal with that in the system.
You can either narrate them or you can throw. Do you imagine? Is this a local? Is this one of the refugees?
Yeah, so my thought was that this could be a scene where we're establishing some refugee stories. And trying to learn a little more about where they were running from. So if anyone has any ideas on that and wants to jump in as the NPC, feel free to leap in.
I mean, I think we can kind of do this as a montage in some
Sure.
ways. And I like that the storms are gone. Storms are gone, but then these folks came down and they started taking people's voices, and they took people's voices, and it wasn't like then they just couldn't talk. It's like once their voice was gone, like all of their energy ran out, and it was this plague of voice takers. And it started with just a few, but then they overran our room in the east, and it said that there's no one left there, and certainly no one who can speak at all. They say that some people have found ways to like pretend to be mute, so they don't get taken, but it's horrible.
Taken by who?
I'll pass that on to somebody else to montage to give another element of that.
Mm-hmm. So we're saying this is some sort of wild magic curse kind of thing.
Some people taking voices. That's what I've got.
Mm-hmm.
I get, and I think these folks, like part of what we see on the screen is sort of a flashback of people fleeing when the folks who have come down from above or from wherever, from out of the storm, are making their way through other parts of this neighboring kingdom. And they're able to flee and retain their voices. But the people whose voices have been stolen are sort of, I think, rendered, maybe they're just unable to flee, unable to act. So we're only getting the folks who can still speak.
Become very, very listless, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the next interviewees that we have is a big, strapping man who looks like he can do really good work, but he talks with almost in a whisper with a very hoarse voice. And, you know, in talking to him, you know, we ask if he's had his voice taken. And the others say, no, that's what happens whenever you pretend to be mute and don't talk for so long. Your voice kind of gives out because you're not using it. And they tell us that this one stayed behind to help everyone else get out, and stayed behind probably too long and may have damaged his vocal cords too much.
I like the idea that the people, whoever is doing this, are taking these voices to essentially make themselves into choirs, because we've established that magic comes from songs. So if you get that many voices, that potentially is more power.
Interesting. Then you can be a choir by yourself.
Yeah.
Some serious mojo. Okay. I like that.
Maybe we have one more scene of the mages attempting to kind of pull together a song to try and one last ditch effort to kind of save the city, the kingdom. But even as they're singing, their voices are being taken away, such that the mages themselves have been disabled.
Oof.
Or unable to defend the city, I should say.
I think one of the things we see there is that the people who came down used the voices that they've taken to, as a sort of a cacophony, to interrupt the mage's song. And they weren't expecting that.
I think Soulworn kind of listens to this and maybe throws the cards down, and we'll kind of wait till the last of the refugees have been hired or heard from, and he'll say, I'm a little worried.
This does not sound. I think there's a bigger refugee problem than we've thought, as we've only gotten the refugees who are well enough to make it here. And there's a whole other set of people who aren't refugees because they can't get here.
Or they might be coming later.
Well, it sounds like they can't move of their own initiative. They have no ambition. So maybe they can't come, and maybe we should go to them.
Oh,
or someone should.
I don't think that's a very good idea. If they've come here and there are enough of them here and they stay, and we provide by reaching out to others, I'm afraid that we're going to draw the attention of these choir folk.
No offense then, as the best defense.
Ross comes over to the table and says, well, that did it. I got a whole team of workers now. They're ready to get going. I'm having them dig the foundation, but I heard some of them talking, saying that their villages and their cities have mounted all kinds of defenses against these choir folk, but they believe, and this may just be superstition, but only a chorus of spirits, nature spirits, can overcome the choir folk.
A choir of nature spirits. Have you ever seen two nature spirits get along?
Look, don't I know it?
Well, that would be exciting.
I wouldn't even know where to find another nature spirit.
Probably a question for Baltic.
One hears some rumors, but maybe what's that at the kangaroo trees, that there's a way to contact other nature spirits that way, or at least I heard something of that effect. It was probably just superstition and stories.
There's a reason people locked the kangaroo trees down.
There's locked and there's locked.
I understand that, but there's locked for a reason, and then locked just for habit. This is
Are
locked
you
for a
saying,
reason.
are you saying that they're locked because of other nature spirits or some such?
No, I'm saying they're locked because when people used them before, they created a whole host of magical problems.
Well, worse or better than the ones we've got?
Well, that remains to be seen.
Mm. I'm ready to call scene at any
Okay,
time. I
yeah.
feel like we've sort of established
Sure.
some very nice backstory here.
Do you want to tick crossroad or crisis?
I think this is more of a crisis because there's this big enemy we have now established. And I
So that's
think
creating
our,
tension throughout then.
yeah. And I think our touchstone is going more towards yes now.
What are the people feeling? Like what?
Yeah, the people are now starting to feel like this is a bigger problem than just finding resources for the refugees. And maybe we need some alliances.
All right, so put a tick on crisis.
Okay.
And Stephen, do you want to call a scene?
I do. Let me look for a second about who's going to be in it and where. So Hawk will be in it. Baltic will be in it. And makes more sense. Probably Soul Worn makes the most sense. And I think this is going to be, let me look. The baths are the public building, is that right? Oh no, that's kind of a resting place.
That's the nature spirits domain.
Yeah. Do we have a place where government or elders or something like that would be?
I don't think we've established a place like that, so you can
Make one.
Make one.
Yeah. I actually think this is happening near the broken temples. And to set the scene, I think we have emissaries from 2 of the nearby villages coming to see how we're doing, because they've also seen an influx of refugees. And I think that they're trying to see how we can band together to help, to see if we can take on all the refugees, because they're overflowing, and what's going to happen here. And I think that the first one that comes up, Hawk introduces, because she had gone through their village many years ago, and I don't have a name ready. His name is Max, and he is a foxkin, and he is a representative, definitely not a ruler, but is a representative from one of the villages that has been seeing a lot of the refugees come through. And Hawk says, if you're seeing as much growth as we are, then, as many of these refugees, then, you must have the same trouble that we have trying to feed them and get them places to stay. And I think they agree, and then turn to Baltic to talk to him.
Space is not an issue for us. We've anticipated a lot of growth in the city, but and have been able to negotiate with our patron to allow us to expand beyond the borders. But it's definitely been hard to feed everyone and make sure that there's fair work to be had for them. But it is rough. I've been hearing rumors about what caused this refugee crisis. And I'll be honest, I'm very worried about Hala, our city, being next on the list of the choir of thieves. Surely they're on their way. It's only a matter of time before they come here.
And Max says, "Oh, you believe that nonsense? That can't happen. I mean, why would such a thing? These people are just looking for a better place to stay."
Apparently, you do not know our history, which I have documented very well. Do you not recall during the Discordant Storm when people lost their voices?
I've heard stories, but have you seen this?
Go ahead, Bull.
I was going to say it is only 3 decades since this city had to retreat into the Warrens. And only 10 years since we returned back to then that was a magical disaster of the like. And while I take your point, it seems farcical and foolish and stupid. But at the same time, I'm not saying that I necessarily see bringing in the refugees, taking care of them as the best policy in what is coming.
Oh, maybe we agree. Well, what's your proposal? What are you suggesting?
But I make no proposal. I am not a leader, but if I were, I would say that we need to concentrate on looking to our own and finding some kind of defense against these things rather than reaching outside and rather than spending our energies in other ways.
Are you saying this in front of Max, in front of the other?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think 2 Max.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I say 2 Max.
Yeah. I think we should leave Max and his villages to their own devices to deal with this, since they clearly do not believe in this.
Max, let me ask you one question, because I'm inclined to agree with my friend here. Do you have a nature spirit who looks over your city?
We do. As you know, our city, our proud city, is built kind of on the edge of a cliff, and it's only a few days travel from here. And our nature spirit bolsters us and holds us up, makes the earth firm to prevent it from collapsing around the rest of the city. But and I've heard tale of your nature spirit. Are you proposing that these refugees have come to places that have nature spirits?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that it may be that we need to foster a friendship between our respective patrons if we are to protect ourselves from the storm.
I look very disappointed with that statement. Shaking my head.
And I think that Hawk at that point says, what do you think we need to trick the nature spirits into talking to each other? I mean, they don't normally commune.
I don't know. In my former duties as the avatar of the nature spirit, I never had to actually encourage him to talk to another one.
And Hawk says, Riskov has become a close friend of our nature spirit. And he turns to Max. She turns to Max and says, "Is there someone in your village who is more wise than you are?" And Max kind of stumbles a little bit and says, "Well, that's more in commune with your nature spirit." And I think that's a good place for the scene to end.
Okay.
And basically, I think the intention here, I'll use my power to say, Hawk is trying to get the two villages to have their nature spirits communicate to each other via their wise people.
So you're ordering the wise people to kind of get together and meet?
Yeah.
I would like to make,
I do want, yeah, I wanted to double check that people were into, we have gone in a nature spirity direction after having explicitly decided that we didn't want to do
Yeah.
that. I personally think nature spirit blind dates sounds hilarious, and so I'm into it, but I just wanted to double check that the table was all okay with that, because I feel like we had decided one thing and then now we're changing.
As long as we backdrop that a little bit,
Okay.
I'm cool with it.
they're
right.
very useful fictional foil.
Yes.
Actually, Marley, I was going to propose, I wonder if Pandora is now older. Not
That would
old,
make
but
sense.
and is now, like, because she's become so connected with the kangaroo tree, is sort of like the local wise person in terms of magic.
Sort of wild, nature, random chaos magic that the
Yeah.
kangaroo trees represent. Sure.
Like
I'm into it.
she's got the most the best handle on the wild magic.
So Stephen, that's the end of your scene, you said. So do you want to click on Crossroad or Crisis?
I think this is Crossroad. This is more of a progressing towards a solution. Yes.
Riskif, do you want to do a reaction?
Yes. We will not be allying with these other idiots because they don't know what they're talking about. We will lead them and solve this through our leadership and wisdom.
I think my prediction is if we don't ally with them, we will have to resort to force to get what we want from the villages. So for my scene, I think I want to do a scene with Soulworn and Pandora. And I don't know, what do you picture the panga tree looks like?
Have we ever talked about this?
No, the only thing I've been picturing is like there probably maybe some gaps in the roots where we maybe get some light shining
I was
out
feeling
from.
like some sort of mangrove sort of situation with
Yeah.
lots of roots that you could sort of like go into and stuff like that. Maybe not in water like mangroves are, but like sort of that sort of twisty kind of thing.
Do we still have barriers around the panga tree?
I feel like you established that with Soulworn that we do. So
I think that
they're
maybe,
locked.
Yeah, maybe
there's locks and
Soulworn,
there's locked.
Soulworn comes down and looks at sort of the outer locks and is a little annoyed because clearly Pandora has gotten past those and will walk in past the physical barriers and rings like a thing of sleigh bells to call out Pandora.
Hello? Hello?
Pandora, it is Soulworn, and I have brought you pastries in exchange for conversation.
Ooh, pastries and conversation. I am twice blessed.
That is it is.
And she, yeah, so she has gotten a little older, and she is also, she has this vibe about her that you can tell, just like even not very magical people can tell that this child is touched. She's been hanging out in the wild magics for a while. Yeah, she's probably more I mean, this is ferrets, who knows what
Right.
ferrets age like, but like, let's say she's a little more teenager-y in a way that she used to be more childlike. So she tilts her head and she says, "One moment, I have to make sure you have an invitation." And then she
Fair
scurries
enough.
away. She scurries back and she says, "Yes, you can come in. I
All right.
invite you." And the doors just open.
So not down with this. But here, some raspberry, some of the new berries that are purple that have a sweet flavor that they made some things with, and some other little
Oh.
cakes here for you.
Oh, thank you. She will take them.
So I have a question for you, Pandora, if I may.
Yes, many conversations start with questions.
Yes. We've had a conversation about not messing with the panga tree several times.
Yes, we've had that one. Is that the one we're going to be having today? Because I feel we have exhausted that particular conversation.
I feel like
and you will need to bring more pastries if you need to have it again.
Yes, I think that particular ship has sailed, as it were. Things are happening in the east, and I know that the panga tree's roots stretch throughout the land.
They do.
Have you felt anything different? Have you heard anything? Have you seen anything? There are arcane villains that have struck at cities in the east, including Alum. That's why so many refugees are here. What does the panga tree say?
The panga trees, well, it's really more one tree with lots of different trees. It's very complicated. But
Branches.
Not even branches, it's more, they're all strings on the same instrument. And the strings are being plucked differently. They mostly don't pay attention to what legged people. They don't. There isn't a word for what we are.
Yes,
but yes, the us's of them.
The populace, the mortals.
The mortals. That's a good one. Yes, what mortals think about. They tend not to worry too much about that, but yes, something is going on that is making things out of tune that they have noticed.
How badly out of tune?
Well, it depends on your philosophy of music. It's certainly very different, but the panga tree has not decided yet whether it is simply a new form of discordant harmony or something it doesn't like.
May I ask you? Go on.
It's like all the notes are still there, but they're
a minor key
or something.
I would like to ask you that should you come to understand that that song is getting louder or is coming closer or both, that you pass that information on to Baltic?
Where? Where is very difficult for purgatory.
Whatever you can determine. We fear that that force is coming this way. So
Yes,
if
we
you
have lots of pangaroot trees don't really have a sense of place.
but you do.
How do I explain it? Yeah, I do. And we've tried to talk about this before. But like when you're everywhere, like being
If
somewhere else doesn't make sense to you
you
because you're there as well.
if you can tell, if at some point you do tell, if you can tell, I'm not saying that you have that ability, but if something were to happen that you were to tell that it was approaching, please tell Baltic.
Are there people in the places that you are thinking about? Because sometimes it knows if there is a person affected. That is the kind of thing we can talk about. If I can explain the person.
There are a lot of people that have been affected in these places, yes.
Yes, but we need particular people.
Changed and killed.
Changed and killed?
Yes.
Killed.
That's what these people do, is they take their songs. Some of the people survive and lose their energy, and many of them just pass away.
They do understand fertilizer.
And seeing.
Yes.
I think and seeing. Baltic, do you have any reaction to that scene? To do anything?
Oh, Baltic. That's me.
Yeah. It's fine to say no.
I was thinking that maybe while all of that is happening, one of the refugees comes up to Baltic, sort of using my power, and I've placed in amongst us a refugee whose village also had a pangaroot tree. And that refugee is named Alice, and she is a little bit out there, kind of like Pandora is. And I kind of discover, Baltic discovers her, and thinks I need to introduce this person to Pandora.
Nice. Any reaction for Hawk from that scene?
I think Hawk sees in the distance that one of the people from the village, one of the wise people from the village, has come to visit us to represent their earth spirit.
And any reaction from Riskoff?
No change from the touchstone. Yes, of course, we're figuring this out. Everyone's coming to us, as that should be.
Yes, it should be. Let's take a 10-minute break here. And when we come back, we will have, I think we're back to Dan to call into the scene. I will put a check on Crossroad. Oh, I should have paused the recording. There we go. I'm so bad about that. If you're watching this, my apologies. Dan, what would you like for this next scene?
I probably should have thought about that during the break, and I did not. I am open to ideas.
Well, what does Baltic want to do? Whatever the scene needs to revolve around your main character. So
Stephen, you said Hawk noticed someone coming. Who was coming?
One of the wise people, a representative of the other village's nature spirit.
I think maybe Baltic and Riskoff and Soulborn are meeting up at I'm going to use a new location
okay.
if that's okay with everyone. The aviary, because it's a high vantage point. So we're up there and we're talking about setting up both ways to kind of connect with an alliance, sort of looking at what's the best way to ally or to create a connection to an allied city, and also defenses. We're talking to Riskoff about engineering potential defenses for the attack, for a potential attack from the Choir of Thieves. That sound all right? So we're at the base of the aviary, and Baltic is like, I hate climbing up this thing, but it's the only way to get a good vantage of the city.
Well, hurry up then. Briskoff is just striding on up. Well, like I said, I can do conventional defenses, but we didn't really design for, remember when we put the farms beyond the city, we expanded. And we said at the time, we can't defend them properly. And that's even not knowing what this choir is going to do. Once you throw magic into the mix, it all goes sideways.
Let's
Like if we do a bulwark, is that going to be helpful? Or is that just going to be extra earth that they're going to use against us because they got earth mages up in their choir?
Let's assume that maybe we can get the nature spirits to help us with the defense. I know it's fun to build defensive things, but I'm wondering, I can see that city just at the edge of the horizon there. Mm-hmm. What would it take to build some kind of transportation system to make it easy to get supplies back and forth?
Yeah, so that's traditionally called a road, and they're not terribly difficult.
Are you talking something more sophisticated than that you want, Paul?
Yeah, I don't know. Riskoff, I thought you kind of stayed up to date with all the cool engineering magic technology that we could use to maybe something more than the road. But hey, if it's
would you like to try that again with more respect in your voice? I'm not your architect anymore. I'm doing this as a favor.
Riskoff, we've known each other a long time.
We do.
We both.
And you should know better than to speak to me like this.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Now, what are you actually trying to accomplish? What's the goal here?
I just, the magics under the city have been wild for so long. I feel like we're on the verge of taming them. Maybe we can tame the magics to help us transport goods and people between our city and Allen over there.
Well, so there's a couple ways to do it. As you know, I'm not a mage, so that part I can't advise on, but so there's always roads, as I mentioned. You
Okay.
scoff, but that's a straightforward one, especially if you start to work in some automated buggies, that sort of thing. Yeah,
Wait, the carts can push themselves?
yeah. Yeah, again, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can do it all with engineering, but that's far enough that I think that would be very tricky. Yeah, it would be well, we could do it, but not quickly is the problem. What sort of time frame are we talking about? I see from the look on your face, not much. So yeah, there'll be no automated buggies, at least of an engineering sort. If you can find a geomancer, or we could rig something with sails. If we can find some reliable winds, we could have a word with our nature spirit and do something with rivers. That could be interesting, actually, where you can imagine two channels, one where the current goes in one direction, one where the current goes in the other.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry so much about propulsion because the river's doing the work for you. The trick would be keeping it moving, and that would require favors from our friend here. But our friend's fairly well disposed towards us these days.
It's true. It's true. We've gotten so much good stuff out of the gardens. They're just overjoyed. Plus, with all these refugees, I think we've got many a mage waiting to help us out. Soulborn, have you interacted with any of the refugees? Do you have a sense of the kind of magic that they do?
I do, but I'll point this out to you because I think this gets lost, Baltic, because you've dealt with the nature spirit. You understand how their magics work. And I know that Riskoff knows a little of this, but maybe, as you said, is not a mage. Everything has a price. Every kind of magic is painful. And whatever we do in terms of transport, when we add in magic to the equation, that it's the only way that this is going to work. There is a price we're going to pay. There's a heavy toll. The city has old magics on it, and yes, we can pay that, and yes, we can put that off, but there's going to be a long-term cost in terms of how stable this city is. That's a prediction. We can organize people. You can order them. I mean, you can order the collegium. You can order the refugees. You can gather them together. And I've seen in the cards that put together with Riskoff's knowledge could do wonders. But the cost is in the long term.
Whether we use magic or not, I like the idea of canals that connect our city to the next one. So even if we don't use magic, we can still put boats, put barges on those canals.
You'll need to use magic. I'm just saying, if it's a timetable that we have,
We can do it. We can do it without magic, but not this quickly.
Well, I say we start building, even if it does take a long time. We better get a jump on it.
They have a cliff spirit. That's an earth spirit. And while I wouldn't want it to devote all of its energies because it keeps that cliff up, which seems like a dumb place to build, but it's an earth spirit, which means it very likely could aid Riskoff excavation-wise, if it can be convinced. I understand there was some sort of meeting between the two of them. Riskoff, did you hear how that went?
I talked to one of the associates of the cliff spirit. A bit willful that. Willful's not the right word.
Headstrong?
Stubborn. One of the qualities
Pot, kettle, go on. I'm sorry, go on.
One of the qualities you want in a cliff spirit who's holding up your whole city is steadfastness and a tendency not to change so much, because change brings things like avalanches. So it's not so much. So I think it could be done, but it's going to take some convincing. It's not known for its speed or changing its mind.
It lies in
You
your
might
hands.
be able to
Baltic.
do at least part of it with the water. Water does cut if you have it run long enough.
But we'll also need the water spirit to handle the water. They need to divvy these efforts up.
I think I can handle that. As Riskoff said, we've left our water spirit in very good spirits, so to speak.
Yeah, it's also a way for it to spread its influence, so it might like that.
I'm gonna call the scene there. I'm gonna use my power to say, just to make things a little more interesting, maybe just say that our water spirit, after a little bit of nominal protest, carves the canals for us, so that they are now there.
Okay.
Is that beyond the power of power?
No, I think that's fair. You're ordering something to be done.
Yeah.
Stephen, does Hawk have a reaction?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Dan, do you want to would you like to mark crossroad?
Yeah, I think we've made some progress.
I think Marley, you call the next scene.
Do I know? Okay. Well, Riskoff, I think, is off building things, as they like to do. Pandora, on the other hand, apparently is collecting a council of weirdos. So maybe we should check in with them. How did we leave it? Pandora was encouraged to go talk to Baltic if she found interesting things. We can keep it with just the two of them, or we can throw in Hawk and Din if you guys want. I'm open to it either way.
I'm good with the two of them, or if Stephen wants to pick up one of the two NPCs, Alice, the parallel to Pandora, or the avatar of the cliff guy from the other village, essentially old Baltic from the other village.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how about we just do Baltic and Pandora, and then you guys should feel free to chime in as NPCs if they get named. So Pandora bounces into wherever Baltic is. Let's see, Baltic is probably actually just sort of walking down the street, in no particularly predictable location, which is why it is particularly weird that Pandora knew exactly where
Right.
he was.
Yeah.
But Pandora clearly knew exactly where he was.
Well, this is where I go to kind of be alone and get
Uh-huh.
away. So of course she knew exactly where to find me.
Yes. So Pandora is there. And she says, so we've been talking about how to convey where the choir is to the pangaroot trees. And we've worked something out, mostly based on what kind of people are composting. And
Whoa. Hey there. I worry that maybe some of the messages got a little mixed up.
oh, what
Yeah.
messages?
We want the choir to avoid the pangaroots trees. And we want us not to be composted.
Yes. So why don't you do those things? Meantime, we think the village to the northwest
No,
now has choir people.
I thought they were from the east. Or that's who we're
We
allied.
think the village to the northwest
Okay.
has choir people in it.
So, okay. That's
Okay.
the Bangaroo tree told you that?
It doesn't really tell, but
Imply.
yes. They have a lot of there's a mine there, so people tend to have certain minerals in their bodies,
Oh,
and the pangaroot tree could tell when that went back in the soil.
Pandora, I really admire the connection that you have built with the Bangaroo tree.
Thank you.
I know
Most people don't say that.
I know it's created some tension between you and some of the other members of the city, citizens in the city. But I know that it is a real, that your efforts are really just trying to make the city and the world a better place.
Oh. Mostly I was just trying to explore with pangaroot tree, but I think it would also be nice for the world to be a better place. Anyway, yes, choir northwest.
Do you think the Pangaroo tree can help us connect with the other connect the nature spirits together?
Connect them how?
Well, just make them amenable to meeting up with each other.
Like coming together in the same place?
Yeah, and yeah, coming together in the same place. Give them a chance to meet and talk.
Places are hard with pangaroot trees. They don't understand location.
Well, neither do nature spirits, really. But
do they? I feel they have a place.
That's true. That's fair. That's fair.
Have a place. Like our water spirit, and yes, there's canals now, but it's like here.
Yeah.
And it's not in the same place as the one with the orchard to the south, or the one with the wind. Hmm.
But I bet the Pengaroots can kind of connect with the spirits on their level.
Mm.
Help.
Yes, yes, they can.
I feel like, and I know Riskoff and Soulworn and Hawk don't necessarily agree with me, but I feel like the key is to get the spirits to talk to each other. Together, they will have more power than that choir does.
Interesting. I'll see. And see. Apparently that was a quick one.
Stephen, do you have a reaction scene?
I don't have a reaction scene, but I would like to use my power ability. I'm going to use my power ability to state that the Pengaroot tree is actually the offspring between the earth spirit and the water spirit.
Interesting. So that wouldn't necessarily be a use of power, because power is about your character commanding something to happen.
Okay.
It's fine to suggest that as part of the fiction.
Okay. Let me see if I can reframe that, and you can go on and see if you have a response. Let me think.
I think that one of the things that certainly will concern Soulworn, that he'll see as he was going down to the canals, and we're starting to see some of the magic being used to get the transports together and things like that, and kind of walking around and seeing that while creating the canals is allowing us to pitch supplies back and forth, and sort of food and materials are being brought, that if these canals continue, that offers a real danger to the water supply, that the water is even more endangered and potential of contamination. That's my prediction. Marley, do you have a prediction, a reaction for Riskoff sent to the touchstone?
Yeah, just that it's not changing. They're still thinking that that the city has to lead in this, but yeah, it is becoming very urgent, because apparently the choir, which they thought was just to the south, is also to the northwest, and that's no good. What does that mean, that they moved around so weirdly like that?
So do you think the populace is in favor of allying with these cities, or against it?
Still against it, because we are leading.
Stephen?
I don't have any way to use the power like that, so I think I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay. That was Marley, you called that scene, right, that we just did?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to click Crossroad or Crisis?
I could go either way on that. Let's call it a crisis.
Okay.
Because the choir's on the move.
I think that certainly makes sense. So Stephen, I think it's your scene to call.
Yes. So I think that Hawk and Pandora and Baltic, I think, have all been sent out as emissaries to the other village. We meet kind of in neutral territory. I'm going to say at the end of the canals. And we're here to negotiate. Ooh. Let me roll that back.
Okay.
Does my character have to be there?
You need to have your main character in the scene,
Yeah.
yes.
So I think Hawk is there, and Pandora is there to represent the Pengaroot tree. And then if the other two of you would like to be there representing either of the nature spirits or the wise people associated with the nature spirits. Baltic is in the scene because he was a representative of our nature spirit. And that leaves an NPC on the table for you, Lowell, potentially the other nature spirit
Oh,
avatar.
yes, absolutely. He is a
Fantastic.
representative of the nature spirit. I am the avatar of the nature spirit for this village.
Yes. And I think that it starts out with
Spirit speaks through me.
I think the scene starts out with Hawk stating what he's learned from Pandora, that the silence, the choir has circled our village and is threatening their village in the Northwest.
Pandora incidentally also says that protests when she is described as representing the kangaroo tree, because that is not how kangaroo trees work, but you know, she shows up anyway.
And I think that when questioned by the other village people, how does Pandora explain that she has this knowledge?
Oh, well, she'll explain it again with the whole, yes, they're miners to the Northwest. And so there's like, so they tend to have minerals in their bodies, and the kangaroo trees can tell when such bodies are returned to the soil
So,
in larger numbers than usual.
so you actually don't know that the choir has appeared, just that there's been some sort of mass death.
Yes.
Well, sir, you should know. Are you saying you don't?
I'm saying our village spirit focuses its energy, intention, and ministrations and love on our village and does not concern itself outside.
Please, come on. How do you talk to your spirit every day?
My spirit is busy. I don't talk to him every day.
Yeah. No, I talk to our spirit every day. Sometimes not every day, but like every other day.
Really, as I understood it, you're no longer the avatar of your spirit.
Yeah, well, our spirit doesn't need an avatar. Our spirit is, you know, sort of one with the whole city. You are just such a joke.
Excuse me?
Okay, gentlemen, let's listen. We actually need to come to a resolution here. We came in good faith, believing that your village was in danger, and we would like to try to help if we can before things get worse for you and for the worse for us.
See, when it first began, you were saying you needed our help to assist you with supplying these refugees. And now when things have gotten a little slowed down, now it's, oh, you're in danger as well, kind of thing. That seems convenient.
Convenient or not,
Yeah.
I think it's the truth. I think that both of our villages have seen a great influx of refugees.
I've always thought you were narrow-minded, but blind to the dangers that are happening. You call yourself an avatar.
I am an avatar, and you'll forgive me if I'm a little skeptical. We have a panga tree in our city, and certainly we have taken the care to keep it under wraps as is required. And so when I see a teenager, if that.
Hey, no, you may not. No. Don't insult her.
So we're not here to cause strife. We would greatly appreciate it if you would take our message back to your spirit, as we will take your message back to our spirit.
If you can.
And I think Hawk eyes Baltic and is like, you know, not used to playing the calmer of the people. He's like usually the troublemaker, and he's like, or she's like, no, I'm having problems with this. So she's like, just take your message back and look into it. And if you're having problems with the people in your village wasting away, then I think our villages need to band together in order to make sure that this wasting sickness doesn't destroy us both.
Boy, understood it's not sickness, it's people that come and seal the voices.
It is, but I'm not sure how else you can explain what happens to the people. I don't fully understand it
No,
myself.
but we would see the people that would come and steal them. So I don't think it's a question of a malaise. I'm just trying to get the precision of the terminology here.
Oh my God.
That's fine. I will encourage you to figure this out and come back and tell us the precision of the language. But first,
see, you have to understand that our spirit is very precise, ordered, and so on. And so I have to give him the information in that format. It is a little unlike your own spirit's approach to things. So you'll forgive me if I seem perhaps a little hidebound.
Frank,
What?
your spirit's name is Frank.
That is one of the names that he takes, yes.
Yes.
Well, are we done here
What
then?
did we want to ask him?
I'm sorry?
What did you want to ask him? He's singing. I can hear it on the Pangaroots.
I will go and speak with him in my own ways. Thank you very much.
Oh, I thought you had questions, Hawk.
oh, basically, I am asking our good friend here to return back and propose an alliance and see if he can help cement the relationship between our spirit and Frank. And she snickers a little bit at the name Frank.
Oh. Yeah, Frank wants to know more specifically what you want them to do.
This guy's getting irritated. Like you can see him, like his face is getting like.
And I think Hawk kind of puts her body between the emissary and Pandora and says, well, what we specifically would like with Frank is for him to join voices with our nature spirit in order to rid the land of this choir of silence.
Frank is intrigued by the idea of a nature spirit song.
And Baltic, still in between and kind of closing off our emissary friend, Hawk turns to Baltic and says, and do you think that our spirit is amenable as well?
I kind of take a look at the emissary. And I'm like, yeah, of course. We wouldn't be here if I didn't think that this was possible, probable, happening. It's definitely happening.
And I think Hawk steps back and looks at the emissary and says, so tell me, how does your nature spirit choose a successor for you? And I think that's a scene.
Riskoff, do you have a reaction?
What is Riskoff's reaction? What is the question again? Do we ally with other cities? No, apparently we can just do an end run around them and grab their nature spirits. So no alliance is necessary. We've got this. We have seriously got this. We are an independent nation who can take on whatever life throws at us.
So I think that is the thing is I think the other prediction of if no is we have to essentially steal the nature spirits from the other cities.
And Baltic uses his power to convince our nature spirit to interact, have a sit down, whatever it is that nature spirits do, with the cliff spirit. The water spirit and the cliff spirit shall meet.
And I think I'm going to use my power, Hawk's power, to say that the emissary from the other town is discredited.
That seems
Nice.
that seems fair. Yeah.
Hawk spreads the word. This guy is useless.
Yeah, he is forced out, especially when he's publicly shamed by Pandora, because there's probably lots of representatives around in that. So crossroad or crisis there, Stephen?
I think that's a crossroad.
Okay. So we are going to move to resolve the crossroad. We know the basic question at hand is, do we ally with one of the nearby cities to gain the resources? So it's a question of allying with them to do this, to support the refugees. And right now we have a set of predictions on the yes and the no side. And the touchstone has established that popular sentiment still lies against doing an alliance. So let us come to the power. Each player with the power says which path they are making the kingdom choose on the crossroad. Dan, what is Baltic pushing and as the choice? Ally or not ally?
Yeah, I think this interaction that Baltic just had with the other emissary kind of as much as he was a little bit of a pacifist, opened his eyes to power and just wanting to do things without having to ask or convince someone else. So I think he's leaning towards no.
No. And what does Hawk say?
Hawk's decision would say no as well, but that's sort of semantics. We're not allying with the cities. We are allying with the nature spirits.
Right. Yeah.
So it's no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so what the decision is made not to go through with an alliance, not to do that. That is not the road that is taken. Instead, we go this other direction. And now the perspective says with whether each of the predictions on the winning side of the crossroad comes true or not. And I think we see, and it's sort of narrated. I think we see Soul Worn seeing the reaching out to this earth spirit and the reaching out to the other nearby spirits, and rather than allying, essentially moving through the power of convincing them and through the power of the Panga tree and those connections. We see those spirits getting essentially pulled into service of this cause, mostly for the city, but protecting the outlying cities as well, but mostly to serve that interest. And I suspect that there's a little bit of our military forces and things going into to make sure that things go that way, maybe in a way that we haven't seen before. I imagine that some of the refugees are turned into people to help watch over things. Which brings us to the touchstone. Touchstone, tell us how your character feels about everything that happened. And that's how the people of the kingdom feel too.
Yeah, so I think it was in fact like how it's been the whole time. Yeah, we didn't need anyone else. Indeed, our ingenuity and hard work paid off. We saved everyone. We are a leader in this realm. And you know, they had a chance to get in line and like do the right thing, but they didn't. So, you know, we just appeal directly to nature spirits, and that's how it is, because we're just that awesome.
A kind of a magical technocratic solution to the problem. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have a choice. You can uncheck or check crisis boxes up to 2, depending on how you think this has laid the groundwork.
What is the mechanical effect of checking or unchecking?
Well, we're probably not doing another one of these, so it really has no effect, but it's just you kind of describing whether you think that this decision would cause more stress on our kingdom down the line, or actually ease stress. If we were playing more Crossroads, that crisis would build up over time.
Oh yeah, that's another crisis box, because we totally pissed off everybody with our elitism.
And yeah, so I think we did that in 2 hours. I don't think we do a second one. But I think we got to play this out. I hope that was okay lengthwise there. It is the thing. Well, we'll talk about this. Is everyone good with that? Do we want to do epilogues for our characters? Just to say, like, in the immediate aftermath, I'd love to see what people think of their 2 characters. Dan, do you want to start? What's Baltic's epilogue?
Are we going to do both characters or just our main character?
Why don't we do both?
All right, I'll start with Ross. I think she's pretty easy. She ends up opening a chain of Crow Keepers restaurants across the network of cities that eventually our Jala becomes. And I think Baltic slowly kind of or doesn't slowly, but rises in the ranks a little bit at a time in the power structure of the network of cities that this becomes. But at some point has a heart-to-heart with the nature spirit, and who's still sort of the same old nature spirit, doesn't change at all, and realizes that Baltic does not like who he's become. So he packs up and hits the road and just leaves the network of cities altogether, and seeks out a new life elsewhere in this land.
Nice. I think for Magistrate Din, I think there's that sort of confusion. He's been kind of a guard, kind of keeping order here, and now his task is a little bit larger, and he probably doesn't like it. He didn't want to be a military person, and he's not entirely happy with how that has gone, and the stresses that's creating. The idea that we've gone from being a city to being an empire of some kind, or a kingdom. And I think Soulworn's concerns are different. Soulworn is very leery about now that there are people like Pandora and like Alice that are contacting and using the Panga trees, and that he's very nervous about what that bodes for in the long run, and bringing these nature spirits. I mean, the same kind of nature spirits that devastated the land, like the Storm Lords did. We're bringing them into the heart of things. Is that a good way to co-opt them, or is it just making us more vulnerable? And I think Soulworn is super naysayer about this. Riskov or Marley, rather, either one for characters.
So Riskov, I think, continues to enjoy his pseudo role of, I'm not actually the architect anymore. which means that he gets to only take the jobs he feels like it. And like always protests that they are retired, but can get talked into building something anyway, because really they like building things. And I think has a big blind spot in terms of the unintended side effects of this sort of isolationism that they've been sort of supporting rather than cooperation. Pandora is sort of, does in fact sort of like establish her council of weirdos. So there's a bunch of people who become devotees and start communing with the pangaroot trees. And that is one of the people that the rabbit kind Anush comes from, which is what gives rise to the great lullaby and the salve.
Nice.
Aha,
Stephen?
tying it back to the history.
Oh yeah.
I think we see Hawk as she goes from village to village, city to city. She's been sent out by the elders of our primary village to go fix problems, and she's eager to experience new things. And I think that outside of our little kingdom area, we're thought of as like antithetical, like, oh, they've set up structure and they have this weird governing thing, and but I think that what we end up seeing is as Hawk goes from village to village, the village rulers or the village elders who kind of keep things in line don't see this as sort of a punishment, someone's coming in to take charge, because Hawk's not going to stay. Hawk comes in and just helps fix things, set things back right, make sure things are going to go along smoothly, and then hops off to the next village. I think what we see from Daylor is his business booms. What is now essentially sort of a capital village that we have sees more and more visitors, more of the refugees. And I think we see Daylor as he gets older and older, and he hands over the keys to his business to his kids, who end up going to neighboring villages and starting up franchises, of eateries and that kind of stuff, using these spices that and these combinations that Daylor has helped. And we see Daylor kind of get old and a little bit what's the right word? Just comfortable in his old age, sitting in the original, restaurant, every once in a while, maybe puttering around in the kitchen a little bit.
Nice. Would all of you mind doing a quick stars wishes, both for kingdom and for the kind of the whole thing? Thoughts on this? Dan, stars, wishes, thoughts?
I guess I really appreciated just everyone's enthusiasm for it, and just sort of diving in and sticking with your characters. And I liked pushing it forward in time a little bit, just to kind of see how these characters
grew. That's a good idea.
That was really good. I slightly regret the question that I posed. I just think it ended up leading to I did not feel like the story itself was as dynamic, and there was not as much character development as last time. And I feel like the question was just this very that I came up with was this very practical question that didn't sort of lead to a lot of especially rich character interactions. So it just makes me realize that for a game like this, having that premise, that kind of that triggering question, is super duper important. So but yeah, it was cool to kind of see all of our the grown up versions of the characters trying to work out these bigger problems. So
Anything else you want to say?
nope, it was great.
I do want to see this, and I kind of play off what you said. One of the things I've realized about Kingdom, especially tonight, is that it's a GM-less game, but it is a GM-less game that rewards system mastery in a weird way. Like knowing what makes a good crossroads and knowing what to do with those roles is a thing that you acquire over time, I think. Because it is kind of left for you to feel out exactly how that gets played in the game. And I think especially the crossroads thing, that was a good point, because I've seen crossroad questions that really work and the ones that don't, and I'm not sure what the difference is. Like I couldn't tell you right now, even having played this a bunch, what really makes a good question. It's also a game that can really change depending on how much the players position themselves at the start to be adversarial.
Right.
I've played a couple of these where we play, I think like we did, where we're in a kingdom, we're kind of cooperative, we want things to go well, we're trying to figure out the right decision, we have our things. But I've also played, I played one where we were a failing newspaper in Baltimore, and like my character said as a power, said to another character, you're going to do this, or essentially I'm going to cash out I'm going to cash you out now, and you're not going to get your retirement or your pension, and did that, and they were like really aggressive interactions on that scale. And so that's a weird difference between the different games for me. Let me say, before I go on more wishes or thoughts about the game, I enjoyed this. Like I loved all these characters, and I think saying let's move it forward a few years was great. Like that really opened things up. And it was really fun to see all of the characters. I really like where Pandora went. I like how we got to get more of the Pangaroot stuff. I love Baltic's evolution and his change between the two. That's why I really loved your interaction with the avatar from the other village. That was fun. And I like
he had
Hawk.
some baggage he was processing there.
Yeah, he was dealing with a little imposter syndrome. Yeah. So.
I like Hawk the trickster kind of becoming Hawk the force for good. One of the other things that strikes me is the game as it's written seems to suggest, you'll set your game up and you'll do 2 or 3 crossroads in a 3 to 4 hour session. I don't know what group you're playing with, but it must want like it must be a group of people who are really doing tight, quick scenes, which I think would feel like almost too forced.
Right.
I like that we were all willing to give it the space that it needs, and it is a story game that I'm never sure how long it's going to take. So I still dig it, despite that weirdness for me. Marley, thoughts, stars, wishes?
Yeah, I mean, I had fun. I am not entirely clear. I feel like this about like all of our sessions, honestly. I can't quite tell if I had fun because of the system or in spite of the system, where it was just like a bunch of really cool people together making it work, and so it did.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like for this one, I was always, for all these sessions, I've been kind of like, am I mechanicking right? I don't know. I think if I had to do again, I think moving ahead in time was cool, but I forgot to position my character as motivated. And so he was just kind of going around existing,
Mm-hmm.
which might have worked with a different sort of scenario, but as it was sort of like, I don't know what this character wants. And I think what the character actually wants is like to retire. And it's like, well, that's not very interesting for me to play. So like, yeah, Pandora got really interesting, but like, but the other one didn't. So yeah, but it was interesting to sort of I kind of want another crack at power now too. Now that we figured out that power actually had more to do.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, you can boss people around. That could have been kind of fun as the architect, but yeah. Okay. I know. Just comments, not
okay.
like anything big. I had
That's
fun.
all good, good. Yeah, I do feel it is as much as anything. We've got some rules, and then we kind of talk and have fun telling a story more than most games. And I think I'm cool with that. So, Stephen?
Yeah, so I'll start with wishes. I struggled a little bit during this session to get my feet underneath me as far as characters and mechanics and story and stuff. I know I struggled a little bit with trying to figure out what my role was and what I could do and what I couldn't do. And I also specifically, because I think we saw more of Daylor in the last Crossroad. I specifically wanted to push a little bit more with Hawk, but I didn't have a really good mental image of her character. So I struggled a little bit there, and I think it fell flat for me a little bit. As far as stars, I have to admit, again, things were fantastic. I Pandora got super interesting, and I really liked her Council of Weirdos. And I really liked the conflict that we saw within Baltic and how that was done. I really enjoyed, and I have to say, well, I really enjoyed this entire series. I've played Microscope before. It was super evocative to play through Microscope and then actually set up games after that kind of got everything going. So thank you very much for setting all of this up. This was really good. And I'd definitely do it again. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I love doing Microscope as a starter for a series. We did Veiled Fantasy, that city game. We did a Microscope session to build the city, and then we played in that a while back, and that was fun. And I've done it for fantasy games and for superhero games and stuff like that. So I do think there's a real power to that. That creates an interesting. I've also done it where you run a campaign and you're like, well, we're going to come back to these characters, but you do Microscope for the gap between the campaigns. So I love that, what that does.
I loved all these sessions. I loved how different they were. I loved playing essentially 3 different games in 4 sessions. And I'm not just saying this, Lowell, but I think if I were to pick one as my favorite, it was the tarot card.
Oh, good.
One. I thought that it allowed us to create some really great imagery that made the world, come alive a little bit more. I don't know what your plan is with that game, but I could see you finding a way to create sort of universal hooks so that when we're playing, say, Kingdom, we have a way to draw the cards.
That's interesting idea.
Or the imagery into it,
I like that.
Yeah. I don't know what that looks like, but
yeah. But no, that's a really good idea. Making it kind of a toolbox to use for some of these other games. The one thing that I realized would have been great as another game to have in here, and if I ever do this again, I'll do it with that, is we needed a map making game. We needed a game where we do a story game where we build a map together, because that's a fun activity and another great way to take the ideas that you've got and bring them into play. So that's something I'm thinking about.
What game would you think would fit there?
No, I don't know. I'd have to make something up. So
I was thinking, so The Quiet Year is sort of a map making game. I haven't actually played The Quiet Year. I played Fantasy Friends. I
haven't done that. I know Companion's Tale has you building a map, doesn't it?
Okay.
Quiet Year has you build a map, but there's a real stark premise to that one.
Yes. That's why. So I've played, I think it's called Fantasy Friends, which is the Quiet Year mechanics, but you're in and maybe it's because of the themes that we chose, but you're like D&D animals in a forest, and you set everything up like that, and that would have fit into here perfectly. So
I will take a look at that.
I've done The Quiet Year. I've played it twice, I think, once with my kids and then once with some friends, and it kind of got repetitive both
Mhm.
times. Like I found a little sort of, and we were playing with 3 players each time.
Yeah.
And I think it's designed to be played with 4 because you move through the deck a little bit faster that way.
Yeah, when I played, it was with 3 too, so, and I did feel that. I think you're right there. I'll have to look at that. Thank you again for being willing to try out this experiment. It is very much appreciated. Marley, it was great to have a chance to play with you. I love playing with new
Yeah, it was
people on the
fun.
Gauntlet. Very excited. I'm going to stop the recording.